I'm doing great, Joe. It's good to be with you today.
I'm probably way older than you, but I remember growing up and having PBS and NPR, and that made sense because there weren't a whole lot of options out there. You had 3 or 4 TV channels, and the education we got was actually, it seemed to me, to be pretty unbiased. They became these behemoths of left-leaning bias, and they were really indoctrination outlets that were getting free money from you and me and everybody watching and listening. This was the right thing to do to take their money away, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at them, they're in a position where they will continue to raise money through their donors to make up. In fact, I saw a figure where really only 1% of their budget actually came from these federal dollars. So they'll continue to do fundraisers, and those that are going to want to support what they put out and their ideology and their left wing activist material, they'll continue to have that support, but the taxpayers will no longer be on the hook for it, and they can just become competitive like everyone else.
They're all screaming and crying now at these organizations, saying that it's just not fair. We're not biased at all. I mean, Mark, in those hearings, we heard you and everybody else, ask them very direct questions about their bias and giving pure examples of it was 60-1, liberal to conservative. Brendan Gill asked this woman who was running NPR, I believe, who about her want and her desire to give reparations and about how she couldn't stand Trump and so on. I mean, did they just get fat and happy being as far left as they were? And did they think we'd never catch on? I mean, what happened here?
Well, I think honestly, everybody just continued to kind of go along to get along. And I think that when the American people in the fall of 2024 went to the polls and they put Donald Trump back in the White House and they gave us a majority in the U.S. House and flipped the Senate to a majority in the Senate, the American people were saying, we want to do government differently. We want it to be done differently. And suddenly we are just holding accountable these left-wing groups that have been just living off the taxpayers' dime. And when Doge went to work in those first 6 weeks, right after the administration took office, you'll recall that, I mean, the polls were 80-20 when the American people were seeing how money was being spent. And they were going, this is craziness. We're not going to put up with that.
Yeah, exactly right. And what we saw from NPR and PBS was extremely political, extremely left-wing. Now their complaint is, well, getting rid of the money is political. I'd agree. It is political because your politics are so far left, because you're trying to indoctrinate 5-year-olds. This isn't Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood anymore. This isn't Sesame Street anymore. These are organizations that took your money and mine and were funneling it into these far left-wing drag shows in elementary school sort of programs. At some point, you've got to realize either you've got a value as a media outlet and you'll last because people find value, or you don't. But what you said is pretty telling, 1%. Mark, why did they fight so hard to keep that 1% money, do you think? I mean, it's a lot of money on paper, but why fight so hard? Go out and get money from advertisers.
Exactly. Well, I think it's because they continue to raise money, feeling like they've got some kind of group out here that is going to support them. And they do have a certain element within the population that will continue to support them. But the bottom line is I just think that they take us for some fools to think that we're going to continue to fund organizations that are going to continue to put out just the negative attacks. And really, that's what led me to do what I've done this past week in introducing, repealing the charter of the National Education Association, another group that's out there that has just gone off the rails.
District 8 Republican, great state of North Carolina. It is Representative Mark Harris. Go to harris.house.gov. Let's get into that full-throated. We know that Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education in the late 70s because he wanted to kiss up to the teachers' unions. Now you got the National Education Association, and they have a charter. Does that mean something as far as my money going to them? Are we supporting the National Education Association, the NEA, that basically hates anything conservative?
Well, the charter itself doesn't come with money per se, but the charter itself is like the congressional seal of approval that is put on any organization. And this goes all the way back to 1906, long before there was the Department of Education. In 1906, Congress chartered the NEA with the whole idea of encouraging teaching and encouraging teachers along the way. And from 1906 to here we are in 2025, well, I don't have to tell you, they have gone off the rails. And is strips them of the congressional seal of approval, if you will, and saying that no longer are they a group that we would put our stamp of approval upon.
Did Jimmy Carter do what I said, though? Do you agree with that, that he only started the Department of Education to kiss up to the unions?
Absolutely, and again, here we are 40 some years later, and it's taken President Trump to actually bring us to the place where we're talking more and more about seeing the Department of Education going away, and getting rid of the bureaucracy, getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse, and the services that the Department of Education now provides. There'll be other ways that those services will be provided, maybe some agencies federally, but primarily we're going to get the money, we hope, and the power back to the states and the local communities where parents can once again be in charge. Because again, from the Department of Education and then of course the NEA, they have just been running on this whole ideology that is so left-wing, so activist, that they refer to President Trump as a fascist. They talk about his policies being that of fascism. They're always fighting parents who are going to school board meetings to call for certain things for their kids. It's just gotten ridiculous.
Under the Biden administration, they literally were going to school board meetings, like the FBI would go there and take down license plate numbers. I've talked to whistleblowers who said they actually had to do that. Instead of trying to track down pedophiles, they were told to go to Catholic churches and to school board meetings. It doesn't make any sense. Are we getting better on that? Is the deep state backing off of that? Are we now going to be able to go to a school board meeting and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about what happened to my child, or about the curriculum, or about a horrible book that's in the library, without fear of being arrested and dragged out?
Well, it's certainly my hope that we're doing better in that, and with a whole new Department of Justice and Pam Bondi and the work that's going on there, Kash Patel at the FBI. My hope is that they're getting back to just fighting crime. The thing that's that the FBI was meant to do, the Department of Justice prosecuting those cases as the Department of Justice was meant to do, and getting out of this lawfare type of business that had taken control under the Biden administration.
The question I get asked a lot, Mark, and I do live streams over on TikTok and so on, got about 1 million followers there. Their question is, what happens to the money? It's $80 to $100 billion a year that goes to the Department of Education. And my answer is always, it goes back to the states that can better manage that money. Why would you want a central government, organization, a complete department that gets to filter through the money and say, if you sing this song to Barack Obama, we'll give you some money. If you ignore that there should be a mother and a father in a house, and it's cool to raise somebody as a single parent just because you feel like it, then we'll give you some money. I mean, am I right in that we take away that filter, that left-wing ideology from a central government department, give it back to the states, and let them do best for what the kids need?
You're exactly right, Joe. That is what happens, because under the Biden administration, we saw millions of dollars. I saw, even in my own district, a $21 million grant, and it was written under the DEI principles, and it was given for that. And when the Trump administration came in, they froze that, they stopped that till they could take a look at it and figure it all out. There's a number of places where the department under the Trump administration has frozen those kind of grants in order to say, we're going to look at it, we're going to sort this out. And man, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that they've looked under the hood and seen how this money is being spent. And to your point, we want to get back to where block grants to the states can then be managed by those state legislatures, by those states, and what their local communities and their local school boards need. That's what, listen, any government that gets closer to home is better government. We can't manage every American from Washington, D.C.
Is the quality of education? Go ahead.
No, we're not meant to manage every American from Washington, D.C.
Well, that was not the original intention. It should be small but necessary government, not this overwhelming government that controls everything. Will the quality of education go up, Mark? And here's what I mean. In Washington State, Oregon, some other places, if you know how to write your name on a test, you're getting a 50 already just because you can write your name. They're passing people that did not learn and shouldn't be passed. And now they're saying, well, because they're BIPOC people, they're not learning at the same rate because it's a racist curriculum. Are we going to fix this to where we're going to find out why people aren't learning very well, why some people are doing better? We're going to figure it out, let the teachers actually teach again, and maybe we can lift everybody up and be more productive in their education.
I hope we can, because I think what's going to ultimately happen is when states have more control, you don't have the federal government dumbing down everything across the nation or setting lower standards rather than higher standards. You're
Right.
going to allow each state to do what they do best. And when the states become the laboratory that we see are successful, then other states learn from that and they can implement those same principles if they want to succeed as well. So I think the school choice aspect is a growing thing across this country as well. I'm
Yes.
very excited for that. And I think that that's where our children's hope lies ultimately in education, is when the parents and the local communities are very involved in their children's education, and you're going to see the quality begin to increase.
Representative Mark Harris, District 8 Republican, great state of North Carolina. Go follow him, harris.house.gov. Follow him on social media as well. Let's talk about ICE and protecting the border. First of all, we know that the attacks on ICE, they're up 830%. That's horrible. Here in Texas, where I am, in McAllen, in Alvarado, you had 2 attacks on ICE facilities where one bad guy ended up dead. There was an ICE officer who got shot in the neck. In New York, you just had somebody who was just sitting and enjoying, the night sky with his friend, and he gets shot by 2 illegal aliens in New York City. Good thing is he gets off a shot as well, and we end up catching who allegedly did the shooting. But we're seeing these attacks on ICE. You're seeing people that you rub shoulders with every day in the House of Representatives pushing for this. Hakeem Jeffries wants more activism out there. You've got people pushing sanctuary cities, pushing an ICE app to track where the agents are. Mark, what do we do about this, if anything, to first of all, calm down the rhetoric so that people don't get hurt, and secondly, make them understand that these people are just doing their jobs enforcing the law?
Well, they are just doing their jobs enforcing the law, and we've got to stand with these law enforcement leaders. We've got to be willing to let them know that we appreciate the difference they made. When President Trump came in, he made it clear that we were going to round up the criminals. We were going to round up those that were here illegally, that were committing crimes, and we were going to deport them. And ICE is simply doing their job. And I think they're doing it quite well, to be honest with you. And we need, as the American public, to continue to stand behind them. I do think that ultimately we've got to cut any kind of financial resources from the federal government out to any city that becomes a sanctuary city and is fighting these ICE agents. I mean, look, we've seen universities begin to come to the table when President Trump stood up and said, look, if you can't manage your university and you continue with this anti-Semitism and you continue with these kind of things, then we're going to start withholding some money. Suddenly you started seeing those schools coming to the table. I think that we've got to do the same things to these cities that are trying to become sanctuary cities. They are fighting our own law enforcement that are there. And President Trump, he took an oath of office to defend and protect, and he is trying to protect Americans. They made a big deal when he called the National Guard out there to LA. But listen, he did so because it was necessary. They weren't finding the leadership in their mayor. They weren't finding leadership in their governor. They weren't finding leadership in any of those elected officials, it seemed. And he stepped in to protect LA. And thank God he did.
And it worked. It worked very well. Then he mobilized the Marines to go and protect the National Guard, who was under attack.
Right.
I mean, you literally had people who were elected officials saying, "Well, maybe gang members should take on the ICE agents." It doesn't make any sense. Well, Mark, let's expand upon that. I know that it's not illegal to be a sanctuary city, which doesn't exist. They just threw that name on there. But it's not illegal just to get out of the way. It's not illegal to not help necessarily. It is illegal if you're saying the ICE agents are going to raid this area, get out of there. That's aiding and abetting without a doubt. So the best leverage that you say is from the central government saying, we will take funding away that we send you. So maybe can you break down what funding do we send a place like Chicago or LA or Boston or New York? What do we send them? What can we hold back?
You think of all the things that cities apply for from the federal government in grants and different things that they try to get to help underwrite what they do. So many things, we collect taxes and then we turn them around and send the money right back.
Right.
And I think that we need to make sure that we are letting them know up front that we're going to maintain law and order. This has been an administration that is about law and order. And we want to work with local communities. We don't want to be fighting local communities. And I think that's where you get in trouble. I mean, you've got your George Soros district attorneys that are set up in some of these larger cities that are not going to move forward on punishing crime, and all of those things. And we've got to be willing to step up and fight back.
And fighting back by holding back money is great. At what point do they cross the line, though? Is it when they say, hey, heads up, ICE is on the way? Can you start arresting some people? Because they're literally trying to help these people avoid, the law enforcement that they deserve because they did something wrong.
I think Tom Holman has already made it clear that any aiding and abetting these illegals, you're going to be held responsible. And we saw that happen with a judge who was trying to help a person, even in her own courtroom, avoid arrest by ICE agents. And so I think they've made it clear that if you're aiding and abetting illegals, then you're going to be held accountable for it.
U.S. Representative Mark Harris, go and follow him now. He's District 8 Republican, great state of North Carolina, harris.house.gov. One last question. Can you give us any more insight from my audience and from me into what the DNI is saying? I like Tulsi Gabbard. We're friends. I think her announcement was amazing. Is there really a possibility that Obama on down can be facing some sort of prosecution?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of questions asked, and I think there's going to be a lot of hearings that are going to be held in the weeks ahead as this information begins to be gathered. I mean, really and truly, these are some serious implications that we're recognizing that are happening. I mean, the kind of thing that you're reading about and hearing, that if there's evidence that continues to build, this will make Watergate look like child's play. And I think the desire to try to take down a presidency from the beginning is there's just some things that I'm hearing, and I think you're going to hear more about it as we get into late summer. When we get back after the August recess, I think there's going to be hearings that Judiciary Committee and some others. I serve on that committee, and I know Congressman Jim Jordan, our chairman, has found great interest in this information that we're hearing from Tulsi Gabbard. And I really believe that some things are yet to come.
Oh, Mark, I hope so, because, those who say a former president can't be prosecuted, it seems to me that Trump was charged with 91 indictments, so that's just not true. We really appreciate the time and all the work that you're doing for North Carolina and for the country. Go and follow Representative Mark Harris right now. Mark, thanks a million. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Joe.
All right,
God bless.
Talk again soon. God bless. We're back after this. Stay right here.